Everybody's here that's coming, right?
Right, I think so.
Okay. Want to call this meeting to order. I'm running a minute behind. First item up for business is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second. Okay. All those in favor? We have a motion and a second. Say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. And now, unfortunately for all of you nice, great people sitting out here, we're immediately going into closed session. So for our personnel, so do I have a motion?
Yes, you do. I move that we go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-31811, A1 and A, to prevent disclosure of confidential personnel files under General Statute 115C321, and to consult with our attorney to consider and give instructions concerning a potential or actual claim, administrative procedure, or judicial action. The title of the action is 18 CBS 157 NERSPA versus Beaufort County Schools.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We are in closed session.
Should be two.
First thing, we wanted to thank you all for waiting. I'm sorry, but we had a lot of personnel to go over. First thing we need to do is take a vote on our personnel.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Michael and TW, we have your your vote?
Yes.
Okay, all right. We have two board members that had to be out of town that are with us by phone. So, Mr. Michael Bcboe and TW Allen. Okay, next on our agenda is 4.2, which is the topic of relocation of the alternative learning program. Mr. Cheeseman.
Sure. So, as you know, based off of your fiscal budget for the upcoming school year and currently recognizing where your alternative learning program is, I am, number one, asking you for an opportunity to have a community meeting sometime next week to meet with our community locally to talk about what our alternative learning program looks like, to give them a fact-finding opportunity so they understand what the alternative learning program means, who it serves, and how it's constituted, including that personnel. The second part is I'm asking you to consider relocation of the alternative learning program to Washington High School, specifically in response to the budget for the 2019-2020 school year, where the personnel would be relocated into existing positions where no employee would lose their position, so they would actually go to other positions in the district. The alternative learning program would move from a teacher-based instruction to a online opportunity with academic facilitators in the classrooms, specifically just outside of the high school. And the way it's actually designed by the state is if you pick the program up and move it to another location and the principal follows, then the state of North Carolina still recognizes it as a school, meaning it keeps its school code, it keeps its state funding to some measures. So with that, I'm asking for your advisement in terms of, number one, would you like to move the alternative learning program? And number two, may I have permission to have a community forum to have conversation with the people regarding this program?
Have we received any feedback from the county on any changes in the budget?
Yes, sir. Mr. Willie Mack's going to share this with you. However, last night at the county commissioners meeting, they did approve a budget where they moved the $179,000 from your local expenditures back to capital that they had moved out. So that was not an increase or a decrease. It was just a shuffle back to the original. And then on a 4-3 vote sponsored by Commissioner Jerry Langley, they approved a 1-cent increase tax hike that would generate $575,000, $200,000 that would stay with the county commissioners for their oversight, and $375,000 that would come to our local, specifically used for the 8-time limited positions, so we would maintain our teacher assistants, which we're excited about. That money does not come towards the Ed Tech Center in that regard.
It really just covers those positions.
Covers the 8 positions and a little bit towards the COLA increases and the benefits and from the state increases. But with that, when you look at personnel and the salaries and all that good stuff, what did we say earlier? Almost $600,000 you're looking at. Willie Mack, I'm going to pass this out to them since
Okay.
this kind of is interrelated. There you go. Now, the other part of that too is if you relocate the alternative learning program, you can then decide how you would like to use the Ed Tech Center, meaning that we would still like to have the annex building utilized for district level space, meaning your instructional coaches, where your elementary schools utilize for their curriculum development, where your EC department may fall at times, but also where your P.S. Jones Memorial site would move. That museum could move into a air-conditioned location, or I should say temperature-controlled area, so the public would have access to that. And then you can utilize the cafeteria as needed, and basically you can shut down the energy to the other buildings and open it on an as-needed basis, so you can monitor specifically the energy costs of the building. So really, just to recap, asking you for a community meeting and asking you for your consideration of the alternative learning program, which is directly tied to personnel and the nearly 600,000 shortfall.
Madam Chair, I just want to say a couple of things.
Yes, sir.
First off, I want to thank Mr. Cheeseman for all his hard work on this matter. Second thing, I disagree with Mr. Cheeseman on closing the school. That school has been in existence, is vital and a part of that community, of that section of town. I feel like it's still vital, it serves a purpose, and I will not vote to close the school. I didn't mean for their pause. I'm just saying, that's my gut feeling. I've always felt dear to that school and that area, because I've had a lot of friends go there. I even attend school there. You did attend school there as well, so maybe it's personal, but that's my feeling.
So can I ask for clarification? I recognize that you don't want to close the building. Are you saying that you would not move the alternative learning program, or would you support moving the alternative learning program and reconstitute the use of the building?
I'm just one of 9. I want everything to stay just like it has been.
Okay.
That's where I come from.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I, Ethel Booth, agree with Mr. Hodges. I will not vote to close Ed Tech for any reason.
Okay. All right, any other questions, comments, motions?
I make a motion that we relocate the learning to Washington High School and open it to the community.
And, I'm sorry, and do what?
Community
I-
forum.
And open it for a community
Forum.
forum. Okay, do I have a second? Michael and TW, are you able to hear? Have we lost them?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear.
Okay. Mr. Allen, can you hear us?
I lost you, I didn't hear what you said.
Okay. Mr. Draper made, Mr. Hodges and Ms. Booth made comments that they do not support relocating the students from the Ed Tech Center to Washington High School, not closing the program, but relocation. And Mr. Draper made a motion that we relocate the students to Washington High School. So those are the things that have happened. We've got the motion. We're waiting for a second.
Chairman,
Yes, you can.
the move would be to the ancillary non-brick-and-mortar buildings in Washington High School.
The modulars.
Yeah,
Okay,
Relocating students to substandard, when I put substandard, learning environments, I don't agree with that.
all right. We did question any repairs that would need to be done to bring that up to par would be done and taken care
I'm
of.
not sure those buildings are how far out of their usage dates. My understanding is they're years past their date. Again, I think students in ed tech deserve the same conditions that all students deserve. So that's my one problem.
Okay, do you have any comments or alternate for that, Michael?
No, I think that's the only choice that I'm not in favor of movement right now.
Okay. Mr. Allen?
Carol, do we even have the money in our budget to bring those, and the big capital budget to bring those up in our school things?
Hang on. TW, yes, we have the money in the budget, and also Representative Kidwell reached out to us unsolicited today, saying that he was sponsoring a special allocation bill in order to bring those portables or those modulars up to speed so he could support the ALP program, as he did not support keeping the building. Ed Tech. That he would rather do a special allocation of funding from our state legislators in order to support the move of the alternative learning program. Essentially, he wants to keep the alternative learning program intact, but he recognizes that Ed Tech creates fiscal issues in that regard, because you're almost at $1 million shortfall on that.
When do we expect to get acknowledgement of that from him? I mean,
He told me to call him towards the end of the week, see where he was with it. I mean, he just called me at like 3 o'clock today, so.
okay. Well, I like the idea of having the public forum and that you requested, and I'll be willing to make a motion to carry on with that public forum and you know, get the word out to the public a little more about what the plans are and the ideas, and also give us an opportunity to maybe give Mr. Kidwell a chance to come through with some funding.
Okay.
Before I make a decision on closing.
Okay, so can we entertain a motion that we table the vote to relocate until we have
Sure.
some additional information?
Madam
Mr.
Chair, we got
Draper.
a problem here. We got two motions.
No, that's what I'm trying to find out. Hold on. Mr. Draper, are you willing to
I'm
withdraw,
certainly willing to do that.
to withdraw your
Yes,
motion?
absolutely.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to get to.
Okay.
So TW and Michael, we've got, Terry Draper has withdrawn his motion to relocate the students pending Butch's motion that we go ahead and approve having a forum with the community. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, I'm going to have a second, if you don't, I'll second it.
Okay. Okay, so Butch has made that motion that we would carry on with having a forum, and we have a second by phone. Do I have any questions before we go forward? And the motion is that we would carry on, we would table any closing of the facility for now and go forward with having a forum. All right. I have a second and a motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Now we're going to keep going. Now we're on 4.3, which is potential relocation of grades 6 through 8 from S.W. Snowden Elementary School to Southside High School. Superintendent Matthew Cheeseman and Southside High School Rick Anderson.
All right, so considering of this is actually sponsored out of your ORED study. So about 4 weeks ago, we sat with Thomas Studley and Matthew Palmer from ORED with your county commissioners here and the Board of Education. The facility use study was presented to us before the actual fiscal planning or the budget session. In that study, Thomas Studley and Matthew Palmer talked about facility sizes and total number of students in the building. Specifically, they only really looked at classrooms and students. They didn't look at class laws or even program laws for that matter. So considering they specifically talked about closing Snowden, they talked about closing North Side, they talked about closing South Side, and relocating. So that prompted me to provide action plans to you as a board of potential thinking for the future. Now, with that, for 4.3 tonight, the only action I'm looking for is not to close Snowden, but to ask for your permission to go back to Aurora with a community forum to seek guidance from them about their thoughts and feelings of moving grades 6 through 8. Now, this also goes with the strategy that I did talk about at a community forum 2 Saturdays ago there, around the fact that Snowden Elementary School is considered low performing. And if you do not have action over time and come out of low performing, the worst result that you could have is that the state of North Carolina would come in and then take over your school. Now, you're not close to that yet, but you're coming towards that. So in short, my job is to share with all of you strategy to avoid that. Now, in 2014, Snowden was at a 40 on the grade scale, which is a D. In 2015, they were a 38, which was an F. 2016, they jumped to a 47, which was a D. In 2017, they gained a point at 48, which is a D. In 2018, they were 50, which is a D. So they're showing that they're moving upward. And so the commentary about not coming out fast enough is in relationship to what happens now with the state and how they view it. Now, what's interesting, though, is they've met growth 5 straight years, although in 2017, they were at 83 on the growth metrics, 2018, they're at 76, but that boils down to 1 or 2 days of how children test, and that's probably really unfair to all of our employees and our students, but that's how we're graded in the state of North Carolina. So considering we looked at Snowden and tried to figure out how could you get them out of low performing faster? And when you look at that, you have to get to a 55 on the actual North Carolina school report card to get a C. Why does that matter? Well, it's part of a marketing opportunity that you're having students transfer out to Pamlico, you're having students transfer out to other private homeschools and charter schools. So in short, my sharing of this information with you is to show you an opportunity in a K-5 model of Snowden, possibly how quickly you can move out of low performing, stabilize it, and maybe people might not come back, but once you get the momentum with the greatness of the school, they may stay and more people may come back to that school. So considering that, I asked Rick Anderson, so I shared that with the principal. I asked that to Rick Anderson, who is the principal of Southside High School, to come and have comments to it around what his preparation of a middle school model would look like. So Rick, I'm going to ask you to come forward. The board has in front of them basically a structural layout. Now, in terms of personnel, you're not closing Snowden, and if you were to move either grade 6 or grade 7 or grade 8, or you move them all, the teacher personnel would follow, so no one loses a position. So considering, Mr. Anderson, let me give you a copy of what you gave me so you can reference it. But Mr. Anderson has put together a middle school model. Now, why is this important? Well, the ORED study and your county commissioners have been talking about how Southside High School is not to its capacity, and it was also recommended to close. And so now you're looking at 2 schools from a third-party vendor who said, hey, you should close the school. And all of us here said, no, you're not going to put them on a bus and ship them to Washington. So part of this also is to see how can we maximize our facility use, how do we give our students a high-quality education. So I tasked the principal, Mr. Anderson, to specifically show the Board of Education where would you put middle school students into Southside High School as a middle school model, and how essentially they would not congregate with all of the high school kids throughout the day. So Mr. Anderson, if you'd like to share your thinking.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Cheeseman.
when Mr. Cheeseman asked me to take a look at this, what I did was immediately started looking at the floor plan of the school. And Southside High School, based on the information, if I remember correctly, was built to house about 850 students. Southside currently has just over 400 students. So we are operating right now at about 50% capacity. We have classrooms at Southside right now that are unused. And so with that in mind, what I started to do was to take a look at the two separate wings of Southside. And could I essentially create a middle school wing of Southside, which is what's in front of you. I would be able to move most all of our high school classes down to what we call the south wing, which is where you see the science labs and the agriculture shops and the welding shops and those kinds of things. We would be able to move, in essence, all of those classrooms down to that end and create one wing that would be basically devoted to middle school. Now, the two exceptions to that would be the foods lab that is currently on that north wing, and I chose to not try to move that because of the infrastructure that's there and built within the building. And then there's also directly across from that a high school business computer lab. And again, that decision was made to keep that there just because of the infrastructure that's currently there. I think that trying to move those would be more than we would want to try to do. But by doing that, what it would do is it would free up a computer lab which could be dedicated completely to the middle school. One of our business labs would become a middle school business lab. It would allocate 3 classrooms for 8th grade use, 3 classrooms for 7th grade use, and 3 classrooms for 6th grade use. And I also went and tried to take a look at, because I can imagine being a parent myself, the concern might be of those students being in the same proximity with high school students and that kind of thing. So what I did was took a look at our schedule and created a middle school schedule that would have those students transitioning at different times than the high school students would transition. We're fortunate at the high school that we have enough locker rooms where we could dedicate a completely male and female middle school locker room. So there would never be high school students there. We would be able to, under this schedule, be able to allow those students to have their own lunch time in our cafeteria. So there would, in essence, be no time that those students would be together, other than when there is PE going on. I would have to divide the gym in half so that you could have middle school PE going on one half the gym and the high school PE class on the other. The other thing that I think is a selling point is that we could eventually start to work towards being able to offer some of these children some opportunities at programs that they may not get the opportunity for. Maybe some agriculture classes. We could possibly look at some of our other CTE classes. We could also offer the opportunity to possibly participate in some athletic programs that they don't currently get the chance to participate in. We would be able to possibly take those kids, if they are at Southside, and every afternoon put them on a bus to Chocowinity, where they would be able to participate in football, participate in volleyball, be on a baseball team, be on a softball team. Those things that I'm not sure that right now that they have the opportunity to participate in. So that's what I looked at and have put on this paper for you, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions. I guess students would be bused with high school students.
Well, that would be completely up to the board. If they chose to run a separate bus, I shared with Mr. Cheeseman that on that wing of the school, there is a separate entrance. So the buses could, if they were riding a separate middle school bus, could be dropped off at a completely separate entrance on the opposite end of the building. So again, there would be no time to commingle there.
And in this model, we spoke with Jerry Wynn, our Director of Transportation. He said in this model, no student would be on the bus any longer than 75 minutes. But we could look at models of one pickup place in Aurora and do a straight line shot to the school to even reduce that amount of time. So that's why I want to go into the community and have conversations about what they think is best, even if they're thinking of this option, but to give us, more understanding of what would work for them and what would not work for them.
How many current students are we looking at, 6, 8?
So you're looking at 47 to 52 students that could possibly move. You have 12 seventh graders right now. So your 8th grade class next year would be 12 students. This is not a model that you would then look at Chocowinity Middle School and bring them down to. So you're not trying to shut down another school and bring them all together. I just want to be very clear about that, very upfront. But this is a model in order to help those students. Now, the key piece of this is, as a board, you may not want to move your 6th graders, and you may want to move only your 7th and 8th and have a K-6 idea. But at the same time, in some of the research that I will share with you in the future, there are models out there that show you that your 7th and 8th grade populations especially do have siblings who are in 9th and 10th grade, so you don't have such the gap. And some of that research also shows you that each time an elementary school student progresses from a transition of one unit to the other, meaning coming out of an elementary model into a middle school model, you have a fair amount of decline in terms of their academics, just from transition of getting used to it. So if you had 6th grade and 7th grade there, and 8th grade, you may be transitioning them and preparing them for the high school model. If you wanted to keep 6th grade behind, it's just very open right now. Now, the key part that Ms. Winley and I talked about is just numbers. And I understand her enrollment is right around 180 right now, 181. But, I'm sorry?
That's with pre-K.
Right, that's with pre-K. Now, just for everyone's knowledge, you have to have at least 100 students in order to have a principal in the building. I don't think this would threaten that, because you're specifically then utilizing that elementary model to keep them together. And you test, in North Carolina, you test at grade 3, grade 5, and grade 8 that have those greatest impacts of student scores, where we feel as though these students would rise to the occasion at the high school level. Some of those high school teachers could come down with the middle school teachers and work with them closely. And then in that K-5 model, you look at grade 3 and grade 5 to really support it. So there's some opportunities there. But you can design it how you'd like to design it. But that's the other part of just trying to get out to the community and see what they wanted.
That was my question. I was wondering, how, moving those students, how was it going to affect the number that's at Snowden?
You're not going to drop below 100. Now, you could look at other opportunities in that building where, just in terms of facility use, you may save on some energy costs. You're going to spend a lot of money, over $100,000, to replace a HVAC unit out there shortly. So you would have more time to do that too. But in terms of student enrollment, we don't project that you'd fall under 100 in this model. And
So
again,
did you find out, that was my question to you,
what's that?
about the 100 kids.
Yeah, so state law says principal at 100 students.
Okay.
Under 100, you'd have to pay for the principal yourself out of your local funds. But at 100 or greater, then the state pays for your principal
So,
position.
Well, I'm talking about for the whole school.
Yeah. Yeah, yes,
I'm
ma'am.
talking about K through 5, we let the kids come up here to South Side, and we keep elementary.
You would
And
have,
we drop down to 90,
we don't project that you would drop down.
but suppose we do.
Then you'd have to
That was my question.
you'd have to reevaluate it, definitely. So you're at 181 right now with pre-K. You're looking at roughly 47 to 50 students that would transition out. You'd be sitting at 130, but now our intention is to be far more progressive and innovative with the K-5 model. And so we're trying to maintain those students from being there versus leaving to Pamlico and other places.
Okay, but how about the bus from Pamlico? Did
So-
you check out that?
Well, that is a conversation I need to visit with all of you, as I read in your board minutes prior to my arrival that you have asked the superintendent position to decline any future Pamlico transfers, which I've been doing in order to maintain our enrollment. And I will be speaking with their superintendent, Ms. Lisa Jackson, to let her know that if it's the board's pleasure, not to have their bus coming back into our community to pick up our kids, but that's up to the board. And again, all questions, I'd like to go to the Aurora community to really talk through it, because 2 weeks ago when you and I were in church, I think the major question was, hey, there was this ORED study and you want to close us.
Right.
And I asked everyone in the church to stop talking about closing the school and talk about how you keep it open and get it to thrive again. So sometimes you have to change the site in order to start advancing it faster.
We just want to keep the community school.
Oh, absolutely. I completely understand that. So, and again, this is just a suggestion that would help with your ORED study, the county commissioner's comments about how Southside is not utilized to its fullest, how Snowden has been low performing for 5 straight years, how you stay out of the state model. Because what many people don't understand is the principal position becomes under scrutiny if you are low performing for consecutive years. The state puts the principal on an action plan that is not positive.
Oh, I understand that.
And so we would try to work very hard with the principal to get out of low performing for multiple reasons.
Is there any financial advantage?
Yes. Yes. There's financial advantages on both ends. I probably should let you finish the question. But there's financial, if I don't answer it, feel free. But there's financial advantages on both ends. Number one, at the school site of Snowden, if you're relocating the middle school model, you're using less energy in the back building. You can move forward some of your media center, and you could essentially lower the energy and shut it down in the back, not cut it off, but you would not be utilizing it as much. Mm-hmm. And in a most recent tour there, just over the last 3 weeks, it's very spacious, meaning it's not filled with students in the back. The other part, at Southside High School, you'll be utilizing and sharing of resources. So there's fiscal advantages to that too. And so, you know, I could see that you could just be very timely and thoughtful, and we would work with the community around athletics, busing, all of that in terms of what they want in programs. And again, as Rick said, in this model, you may be looking at bringing some of your high school courses down, or at least in pre-courses for them. So there's fiscal advantages to that too. And I'm not sure if Mr. Anderson said it, and I apologize, but notice the 2 different bell schedules, one on the left, one on the right. Mm-hmm. So that's also something to look at just in terms of personnel usage. As Mr. Anderson was very thoughtful about in this middle school model, how he would utilize a second assistant principal to really stay close to this model all day.
I guess if this was, they would become Seahawks.
They would become Seahawks.
I mean, it would be Southside,
It's Southside High School.
still be Southside High School.
Yeah.
They just have a middle school.
It's a middle school model inside a high school, which is consistent with some of what you've seen in and around Eastern North Carolina.
And to make it clear to everyone out there, we are not trying to make a motion to close the school at all.
No.
Our motion is that we have a community forum to involve the community, answer questions, and take comments, as well as inform you of really what this, because we're talking about something that you all are not seeing, and I understand that that's difficult. And for those of you that are hearing the reference ORED study,
Yeah.
that was a study that was requested and paid for by the county commissioners, who wanted to have an idea on our school capacities and which schools were full and which schools were not, and how we were utilizing the buildings. We did not order that study. We didn't pay for that study. And we disagreed with a lot that was in the study. As Mr. Cheeseman said, they're looking at square footage and not at North Carolina and federal laws and how you fill those classrooms. We will be trying to, our attempt will be to work with the people who came up with the study to inform them more about these things that they didn't take into consideration. So, and I think because one of their recommendations was to close certain high schools, to close Snowden, that wasn't our recommendation. That was their recommendation. But somehow, as information travels, it gets sometimes lost. So I just want to inform the public, this was not a study that we wanted to do because we wanted to close a school. I personally believe very strongly in community schools, and I think most of the board also believes in community schools. But we also believe in making the most opportunities available to every student, whether that student resides in Aurora, or Chocowinity, or Washington, or Pinetown, or Bellhaven. Any opportunity out there, every student in Beaufort County Schools deserves the same opportunity. And we have to make sure we can give them that. We are dealing with old facilities. We are dealing with a lack of funding to maintain those facilities. We are dealing with teachers that right now are afraid that if we don't have the funding, they may lose their jobs. And I would love to promise you that won't happen. But I can't promise you that. I wish I could. But if the money isn't there, we have to make, really tough decisions. But I don't think any of us want to make any tough decisions without your input. And so when these forums are scheduled, I encourage you to show up. I encourage you to ask the right questions. I encourage you to deal less with emotion and more with the facts that you're given. And social media can be a wonderful tool to inform people as long as you're informing them correctly. So I also would ask you to please use your social media, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or texting on the phone. Let's all make sure that we're dealing with the facts and not just the raw emotion. Because I don't think there's a board member up here that wants any student to go without the very best opportunity that we can afford them. So with that said, I entertain a motion that we would allow Mr. Cheeseman to go ahead and schedule a community forum in the Snowden community.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Michael and TW? Aye, okay. All those opposed? And we will let
Thank you.
You go forward with setting a date and making sure it goes out.
I will make sure it's very public so people can be at it, so we can get feedback.
Okay. And I want to repeat that Mr. Cheeseman's door is always open. So before you ask somebody that may give you misinformation, ask him.
Please.
Call and make an appointment. Ask him. Let him give you more information than, I know everybody's got a lot going on. At this point of our meeting, if you have seen an agenda, we're going to get into the rest of it, which isn't always as entertaining. So I'm going to give us a 5-minute break, and those that want to stay, please stay. Those that have come and heard what they wanted to hear, you are welcome to take these few minutes to exit. And thank you all for coming. I'm just doing that so we can
Well, that
get
was
back.
pretty aggressive.
That was for me.
If everybody will have a seat. We're now to 4.4, but first, I think we're going to entertain a motion from Mr. Oliver.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we add a item to our agenda, item 4.9, to be appointment of a new board member to the NERSBA board.
Okay, we have a motion. It's an action item. All those in favor say, second, excuse me. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, we'll add that as a 4.9. Now we're at 4.4, budget amendment. Mr. Willie Matt Carolyn, our Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you. You have before you this evening Budget Amendment 611, 2019. It reflects the changes in the state allotment, shifts within local expenditures, federal allotments, and any activities in the remaining funds of the school system. Without any questions, I'd ask that you adopt it. If you have any questions, I'll do the best I can to cover them for you this evening.
Anybody have any questions about the amendments? And you know that if you don't have one now and you have one later, you can always contact Mr. Carolyn. All right, I entertain a motion to adopt this budget amendment.
So moved, Madam Chair.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to adopt the budget amendment as stated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carried. Now, the next one?
Yes, there are a couple of items I need to bring to your attention. In the upcoming school year, we will be shifting the pay date from the last working day of the month to the 25th. This will allow staff to make corrections to people's payroll checks, close out the expenditure, so we get a nice, tidy year or month expenditure without having any expenditures lag into the next month. It also helps with the holiday pay. You know, there's a long time before that January check gets here when you're paid in the middle of December. So that helps offset that. And there's been several school systems in the region that have been doing it, and so we will be trying it in the upcoming school year.
Okay. Does everybody understand what he's saying?
Will that be the 25th of, like even in December?
It's before.
We usually will pay the last workday in December because of the
Okay.
Christmas break. And sometimes we will shift it on the Easter break, depending because of people traveling over the Easter holiday.
Okay.
Shifts to the last business day closest to the 25th.
And this would be effective in the month of July?
Yes, ma'am.
New fiscal year.
Well, I know there's a lot of teachers out there that are going to be thoroughly disappointed that they're going to be paid 5 days earlier than normal. But, anyway, all right, do I have a motion?
Do we need a motion for that?
Yes, it's on our action, yeah.
Okay.
He has to have a motion because it changes the payday.
Pay schedule.
Yeah. So we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Draper, okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, all right. Is there anything else on this?
No, the other one was just to address some of the conversations that Mr. Cheeseman mentioned earlier in the day with me, in that the county did approve their budget last night. The current expense budget did remain the same with the addition of the $375,000 for the teacher assistants or the time-limited employees. The school resource officers' funds were taken back, and they will administer them through their government financial office rather than running them and then us having to pass it back through to them. So basically, when we look at the additional funding and the additional cuts that we had already looked at in the budget year, because we were looking at about a $2 million gap, we're looking now with the document that was provided to you this evening about a $1,517,000 gap. And if you'll recall, in several of the meetings and discussions among staff members and board members and our board meetings, we were looking at the least negative impact to find the additional funds to make it work. One of the items was utilizing the shift with EdTech and utilizing those staff members in vacancies that would be created with people leaving, retiring, or transferring out of the system. If you look at the dollar amount for that, those 5 teaching positions and classified positions would gross somewhere in the neighborhood of $511,526 in savings. When we looked at the building's utility costs, they're running somewhere in the neighborhood of $76,000. By closing the wings or certain wings and utilizing those savings, it would come to about $45,000. In the budget, when we were looking at having the $2 million shortfall, I think we've talked about it in the charter school allocation based on the fiscal year 18, about 6.21% of our county fines and forfeitures and appropriation goes to the charter schools. So based on that, there was a $1.215 million based in the charter school payment. Based on the reductions and the cuts that we're looking at, there's about $282,436 in savings in the budget that we could utilize to cover the gap. The other item I believe that we had discussed, and Mr. Doan and Mr. Cheeseman may give you more detail if you need it, was the possibility based on vacancies, student enrollment, utilizing space, eliminating additional 13 teaching positions. There again, these would be positions, some may or may not have a person in it, and some will be moving into a vacancy. And that was estimated about $650,000. So based on those pieces that we were able to identify, we're about $28,556 short of zero fund balance appropriation. Now, keep in mind, that was something that we've done in the past. We've budgeted about $350,000 of fund balance. I think the board had wanted to not have to budget that because they would be reoccurring expenditures, and it will not take long to dwindle the remaining fund balance that we do have in the current general fund. That basically is a summary of where we are based on your decisions tonight. We have to go back and possibly find another $556,000 to eliminate in this budget.
You're looking at least 11 positions that
And they're live
hold
bodies.
people. So, but that's our job. We'll go back and look at it.
It's one of the hard realities of trying to find money that's no longer there. You end up having to look for those funds in people. And I just say we need a lot of prayer right now. Don't know where that money's going to come from. And we're doing our best to hold on to our teachers. Okay. Based on the page in front of you, entertain a motion to approve his budget overview as stated. I guess, do you need a motion on that one? I
That's
think
basically
we're okay with
informational
that.
purposes, because when we come back at our next meeting,
That's when you're
we're
gonna need
really
it.
going to try to get a working budget adopted.
Okay.
So we can't, I don't think we can adopt this as a
No,
written anyway.
I don't think we
because
can
of-
either.
It's not
so-
accurate, right?
So,
can't.
it's going to change. All right, so if it's okay, then we're,
Just,
And even when we adopt, or you all adopt the budget later in the month, that document will change based on state allotments, the
Right.
vacancies that we are able to fill. Right now, we have been fortunate that we've been able to put some of the lower paid or inexperienced teachers in our local dollars. The hope is that we will be able to attract more experienced teachers, but when that does occur, those dollars will be shifted in local and those expenditures will go up.
just a question of clarification. You said the local PRC 039, that's the 570,000? That was the,
Right. If you recall, the county wanted to see the total cost of the SROs.
okay, that's the SRO money. Okay.
Right, but that is not the total cost. Our part that we have been paying in years past was in the state and local money. So by them pulling the 760 out of local, it frees up the state portion that we have been utilizing to cover some of those other costs that we were currently covering in local.
any other questions for Willie Mack? All right, thank you, Willie Mack. We're going to go on. 4.5, the CTE plan, Ms. Pettaway.
Good evening. Last month, we talked about the CTE plan, and I did a presentation for you. Just as a brief recap, we are in a transition year for 2019-2020 to Perkins 5. Basically, we are doing well in CTE overall. We do have some areas of improvement. We were able to get some additional federal funds that we weren't aware of the last time, so we got an additional about $16,000 in support funds for CTE programming since we last met. Other than that, I was just coming to seek a motion that you would approve the plan so that we could receive our state and federal funds for CTE for next year. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer anything.
Any questions? If not, I entertain a motion so we can approve Ms.
So
Pettaway's.
moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, let's keep going. AIG plan, Miss Ashley Patrick.
Just a repeat of what we just said, but last month we looked at the AIG plan. I shared that with you. Also some logistics about timelines. There were some changes on some curriculum pilot pieces that we want to put into place in the next 3 years. This is a 3-year plan. And again, I'm coming to you for approval of the AIG plan for 3 years.
Right, any questions? All those, do I have a motion? Okay, a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
since-
sir.
Since Ms. Patchett's already at the podium, can she go ahead and, I know it's a no action item, can she give her information? So she don't,
I can wait.
On the Healthy Use Act,
I can do whatever you,
you want to
at
go
your
ahead and do it,
pleasure.
and then you're, okay, we're going to skip over just very quickly.
since she's already there, I
Yeah,
just
this
figured it'd be.
is, well, this is a first read also, so it's not an
And
action
this
item.
is more of an FYI.
Right.
Yes. So Healthy Youth Act, just wanted to always let you know some updates that we're looking at for the coming school year. Very excited to have some partnerships to update our curriculum, and we'll talk about the law in a little bit. ECU has partnered with us to provide training for our 7th and 8th grade health for living teachers, which are your health and PE teachers. In the fall, the county health department, they wrote a grant that went through the board, I think in January or maybe December. They wrote a grant to provide materials and training for our 9th grade PE teachers, which will happen in the fall in August. The really great thing about all these grants and all the curriculum materials is it's a very strong parent piece that is part of all grants, that the parents can come and of course, out of Healthy Youth Act, parents can opt out of part of it or all of it, as we've had in the past. There will also be parent nights. Those were written into the grants that parents can see. All curriculum materials will follow state and local policies, and materials will be available by state statute 60 days before classes are taught. And this, what you have, is just kind of that law, which is 115C 81.25. You see the parent piece, and you can look at the law for more. There's a lot of curriculum materials, but this just kind of set with what we were doing, that we will, anything with Healthy Youth Act, parents get a review at 60 days in advance. And that we do have to provide this comprehensive school health education program. We don't have a choice, which is part of that law. And with reproductive health and safety instruction, that we shall, and again, these are things that we have to do. We have to teach abstinence is expected standard. We have to teach peer pressure, positive reinforcement. We shall present reasons, skills, and strategies for remaining or becoming abstinent. Absence is huge. And number 4, 2, and 5, mutually faithful, monogamous relationships, heterosexual relationships are in the law, and that is what the standards for our curriculum. Then when we get, you still see 6, absence until marriage. 7 is we have to provide those opportunities with parents and students. And then from there, we also have to provide factually accurate information about the reproductive system. We talk about pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases. So all these curriculums will follow, and we can keep going. We will teach the effectiveness of FDA-approved contraceptive methods in preventing pregnancy. We teach sexual assault awareness, sexual abuse awareness, and sex trafficking. So all of these curriculums will take care of the state law.
Okay, all right. Any questions? This is a first read, and we'll be coming back to it for action. All right, thank you,
very
Ashley.
much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, now we're going to skip back to where we were. We're on policy 7440, reassignments and assignments transfers. Mr. Doan?
Yes, ma'am. Previously, the board on first reading had seen the recommended change to our, just a change of date. The original policy said that an employee initiated transfer request should be completed no later than June 30th, but based on the way that staffing and specifically budgets work, that generally we have more vacancies after June 30th than we do before. So this would allow our current employees to have a longer window in the summer to apply for open positions within the district if they want to transfer. And so we would ask that the date be changed just to the first teacher workday, so it always revolves around whatever the workday, so the calendar changes in the future. It's not on a specific date, just whatever the first teacher workday is. That's
Okay.
the only change in the policy requested.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Booth, a second by Mr. Hodges. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, thank you. Now we're at 4.8, the Board of Trustee appointment for Beaufort County Community College. We have had Mr. Russell Smith as one of our appointees, and he has been the representative for the last 10 years. And Mr. Smith contacted me a month or so ago and said that he was ready to step down and spend a little more time being a granddad. And so for us to be looking and for another appointment. We have other appointments, but, you know, this runs in a cycle so that there's a lot of continuity. So this is our only position appointing that's open at this time. So I wanted to open it up to any board members that had an appointment, a nominee.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Johnny Robin from Washington.
Okay. All right, are there any others? All right. Can you just tell us a couple things about Mr. Robbins so they know who they're voting for?
He was one of my football coaches back when I was in high school. I know he's worked for the county and the city of Washington for, I think, most of his career. And I think his wife works for Washington High School.
She works for Beaufort County Schools. She's one of our ESL teachers.
And, you know, he's raised his kids here in Beaufort County, and I think he'd be a fine opportunity for him.
Okay.
For us.
All right. Are there any other nominations? All right. We've got a motion by Butch to nominate Mr. Johnny Rodman. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. And we'll notify Mr. Rodman. Now we have 4.9. And this is for the appointment. We have a Beaufort County Schools Board appointee to the NERSBA Board. And Mr. Hodges has been so gracious to serve as that appointee since its inception. Mm-hmm. And we appreciate everything that he's done to represent us. And we are now at a time of appointing someone new. And do I have a nomination?
Before we go any further, this
Yes,
kind
sir.
of caught me blindsided. So I would like to move to go into closed session to get the rest of the story.
Absolutely.
Do I have a second?
Who's
Well,
reading?
that's your job.
Who's reading
okay.
it? Who's reading it?
Yeah, I don't have a closed
I don't know
session.
what I have to
Yeah.
do, but I want to get clarification on this.
I can
'cause
read
I
it
do
if
not
you
know
want.
anything about it.
We just learned about it.
Oh,
Well,
Yeah.
I think I need to know about it.
Personnel.
Terry, I have one down here that was over
Okay.
here.
I move that we go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A1 and 8 to prevent disclosure of confidential personnel files under GS 115C321 and to consult with our, this is on the NERSBA thing. It's the
Yeah.
same thing?
Same
Okay.
thing.
Consult with our attorney to consider and give instructions concerning a potential or actual claim, administrative procedure, or judicial action. The title of the action is 18 CVS 157 NERSBA versus Beaufort County Schools.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, please.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of us going to closed session to discuss this, say aye.
Say aye.
All right, all those opposed, motion carried.
I'm afraid you're right.
All right, we're back in open session, and we're back at 4.9 for a appointee to the NERSBA Board. We're going to entertain a motion to appoint a member of our board to their board for the duration of our students at that school.
Madam Chair, I'd nominate Terry Draper to take Mike's place on the NERSBA Board effective July 1st
Okay,
of this year.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
Did Terry say that have you agreed to take the position?
I said a while ago that if that's what the board's wishes were, that I would do it.
Oh, okay. I just want to be clear,
No,
make
back
sure.
when we first started this, I had said if it decided that, because, we were, Mac, every time we go into closed session to talk about it, Mac had to leave and everything else, so.
Okay. All right.
So now you believe.
No,
We don't have to go through that.
no, because I don't have any cases against me.
Okay. We have
Right.
any other
Right.
questions, Ms. Booth?
Go ahead.
You sure? You have any other questions? Now's the time to ask.
I'd just like to say good luck.
I'll need it.
Yes, there would.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. We are finally down to the calendar for June. We have another meeting on June 25th, which will be our regular meeting. There will be a meeting that you will schedule a forum
Next week sometime.
next week sometime, and you'll get that information out. Remind everybody that we have graduation this Saturday, and I think Lisa put out a calendar.
Did you get the email, Ms. Booth?
Excuse me?
Did you get the email from Ms. Duke of the graduation time she asked me about?
Yes.
Okay, if
Yes.
everybody has that. If you don't, make sure you get one before you leave. Encourage everybody to go if they can and attend these graduations and wish these young people well. There is also the nutrition banquet, which is tomorrow night, even though your invitation was wrong on that, so hopefully you've RSVP'd that. Is there anything that I'm missing? Anybody else know of something on the calendar that we need to remind everybody about? Okay, all right. Board member updates. Ms. Booth, any updates? Mr. Hodges?
Friday I'll be in Raleigh attending the School Board Association meeting, so.
Great.
be
Well,
fun
you
time.
continue to represent us well. I appreciate it.
Giving
You
them
busy
our
anyway.
regards.
Yeah.
I will give them your regard.
Okay,
You
yes.
busy
You can
anyway.
bring us back any updates that you hear.
Oh, yes.
Ms. Pease? Okay. Mr. Oliver?
I'd just like to take a minute and thank Mac for his years of service on the Nursing Board, representing Beaufort County Schools. I think he's done a fine job. And I
Yes,
appreciate
sir. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
it. Not always been the most pleasant, especially in the last couple of years, but I do appreciate what you've done.
I tried to represent everybody the best I could.
You did a good job.
You did.
Mr. Draper?
I'll second that for Butch's. Certainly I got big shoes to fill. Hopefully, I can represent us proud on that board and as
I'm
well as
sure
you
you
have.
Okay, and I want to, once again, thank all those that came tonight to the meeting to get information firsthand. That's always the best way to get information, is firsthand. And I really do appreciate their attendance, and that's it for me. Mr. Cheeseman?
Currently looking at the calendar for when we will do our award big check presentation for Golden Leaf grant. So we're very excited that Golden Leaf did approve the project modifications, as you know. I'll be at the State Superintendent's quarterly meeting on June 24th, so I'll have information to report back on the 25th. Very proud of all of our teachers, TAs, and all of those who touch the lives of our children through the final day of school. And we'll ultimately have all of the results from our testing to share as it comes in. And we'll have some of it for our June 25th meeting, but most of it in September after the state board approves it.
If there's nothing else? Oh, can you please introduce our new?
Oh, sure. And once again, I want to introduce Dr. Marvin Bradley, who is our Chief Operations Officer, and we're very excited to have him be a part of our team, and looking forward to changes with efficiency in our maintenance and transportation, school nutrition, as I'm sure Stan and Jerry and Gwen will be very excited to be working with his oversight. So Dr. Bradley, thank you.
And I'll put you on the spot. Do you have any comments? Now's the time.
No, thank you all so much. Glad to be here.
Well, we look forward to working very closely with you, and our meetings don't usually last this long. All right, if nothing else, I entertain a very important motion.
I make a motion we adjourn.
Second.
Second, all those in favor say aye. Not in favor, just don't say anything at all.
Let me get Mark now for you.